Welcome to our webinar on talent management. We're a London-based, some of you may know, we're a London-based consultancy and training organization specializing in improving governance worldwide. And I'm very pleased that our colleague Anne Hall is here today to talk you through some of her thoughts and ideas about managing high performers or managing talent. Anne is one of the directors for our workshops, including workshops on human resources and leadership. We'll hand over to you, Anne, in a minute or two. But perhaps just first of all, I can ask my colleague Denise just to talk us through how the webinar technology works and how you can use the chat room and ask questions and so on. So over to you, please, Denise. Thanks. And Denise, you're on mute, I think, at the moment.
Sorry, I was on mute. So hello, everybody, and welcome. You will see the slides already on your screen, and Anne will be moving through those as we progress through the webinar. We will keep our cameras and mics off unless we're actually talking to you. But you will see on the side of your screen that there is a box for questions, and we will invite you to ask any question that you want to ask throughout the webinar, and then at the end of the session we will answer those questions, time permitting, and if not, we will get back to you after the webinar has finished. There is a polls box as well, and at some point throughout the webinar we will be asking you to answer a very short question, and I know that some of you have already seen the chat box, and it would be very good if you could just go into the chat box and introduce yourself to us and to other participants. I hope you find the session enjoyable. And I'll now hand over to Anne.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Denise. Very warm welcome to everybody here joining me today. It's a real pleasure to be with you. I'm in London at the moment, and it's a very sunny day, but it's a very fresh day. I'm going to be with you for the next hour. So let me just introduce myself. Some of you may have been with me previously. If you have, welcome back. If you haven't, it's a pleasure to hopefully introduce you to okay, sorry, just accepting. So my name's Anne Hall, and as Claire indicated, I'm Director of Studies, and I do a wide range of training for PAI. I've got about 20 years experience in designing and delivering training, and I've worked in about 17 different countries. I'm not too sure who's with us, but it did look like we were going to get quite a variety of people joining us. I've worked in some of the countries that are represented. I'm not sure who's with us, or they may be coming in at a later date. But I have done some work in Croatia. I've also done recently some work in Jamaica. I was there in January. I've also done some work in the Falkland Islands, as well as Kenya and Uganda, to name a few. So I design and deliver a wide range of HR and leadership and management programs, most of which are very participative and geared towards individuals' needs, so that, you know, should you come to London, we will tackle any of the areas that you want relating to the topic. I also am a qualified Chartered Institute of Personnel and Development executive coach, and I currently have a contract with Ernst & Young, and I'm coaching 2 senior government officials, one in the UK and one in Europe at the moment. I'm doing that virtually. Prior to being a freelance Associate Director of Studies, I was with REPA International. And again, I was working on the HR faculty and also the leadership faculty. So I've got many years experience designing and delivering a wide range of learning and development programs. You'll see there I'm also a qualified workplace mediator. So I do undertake workplace mediation, and you can see I'm also a fellow of the Learning and Performance Institute as well. So I'm going to be with you, as I said, for the next hour. The reason we're looking at talent management today is that it's quite an interesting and challenging area for those people in HR, but it's one of our topics in our workshop that we will be currently running in June. So we are running the Next Generation Human Resources programme, which is about transforming people management in the public sector. If you're keen to join us, June is a beautiful month in the UK. It's our summer. The dates are, as you can see, the 16th of June to the 20th of June. If you can't make that one, then have a look at our brochure, because we will be posting 2026 dates, so you can keep an eye on that. So if you can't make that one, have a look at all of our programs that we are running and look to join us on one of those. So let's have a look at the plan for this session. So what we're going to do over the next 50 minutes, we're going to define talent and talent management. So we're going to look at what this is. We're going to also look at some of the challenges that we face with talent management. As I said, this isn't a particularly easy area to actually focus on if you're in HR. So we're going to spend some time thinking about how we can prepare to launch our talent management, and some thinking that we might need to do in HR in order to ensure that talent management is successful. So as I said, talent management is one of the areas that we spend time on in the 1-week program in June. We also cover succession planning as well as talent management. So we'll probably spend easily half a day on talent management and succession planning, exploring sort of what this is and how you could do this in your organisation. So I've probably got a little question for you if you're with me. It would be great if you could think about this question. What do we mean by talent? So I'd like you to maybe just sort of reflect for a minute or two. And then if you can, it'd be great if you could post your definition of talent in the chat box, and you'll see the chat box is on the left hand side. You just need to click on it and hopefully just type in your definition of talent. So it could be your organisation has a definition of talent, or it could be your own, or something that you think is a definition of talent. Okay, or you could be Googling, I don't know, depending on where you are. So what do we mean by talent? So I'm hoping that we've got some people posting their definitions of talent in the chat box. And I'm going to go to Denise and just see if we've got any interesting definitions around talent, Denise.
Okay, at the moment, we've only had one person come back to us. Well, two now. One has said it's about looking for upcoming stars in their organisation.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. And then another comment is people who perform exceptionally well consistently.
Ah, that's a really good one. Exceptionally well. That's really good, isn't it? Okay.
One more.
Yeah.
Talent means having a skill that is natural and outstanding.
Yes. All very good ones. Natural. Okay, sorry, I'm just jotting these down because I'll probably come back to these. It's quite interesting. Sorry, I'm just going to have to take that off. Okay, sorry. I'm in the office, so both my husband and I share the office, and we were supposed to be not taking any calls. However, let's go on. So, interesting definitions of talent in terms of your definitions. I want to share with you a definition from the Chartered Institute of Personnel and Development. If you're in HR, the CIPD is the sort of source to go to. And their definition refers to individuals who can actually make a significant difference to an organisation's performance, either through their immediate contribution or by reaching their potential. Now, it's quite an interesting definition, and as somebody quite rightly said, if you look up talent, it means natural gift or ability. So one of the issues we've got with talent management is we really need to have clarity about what is talent in our organisation. Are we referring to somebody who can make a significant difference to an organisation's performance, either through their immediate contribution or by reaching their potential? Or are we looking for those that have a natural gift or skill? Okay, so the first thing we need to consider is what's our definition of talent? Okay. Now, I can see I've got 11 people with me. So I'm interested to know from the people that have joined me, and it could be some people are having difficulty joining, which is a shame because it would have been good to have everybody on this. However, what I'd like to know is, do you currently have a talent management process in place in your organisation? If you do, then push 1, select 1. If you don't at the moment, then put 2. So you're going to either put 1, yes, we do have a talent management process in place, or no, we don't actually have talent management in our organisation at the moment. So I'll just give you a couple of minutes just to think about, do you have a talent management process in place? So if you do, that's 1. So that's a yes. And if you don't, then 2. Okay.
Okay. So it looks like we've got quite a few answers. And as Anne mentioned just now, we are expecting more people to join. So I hope that there's not problems with people joining. But anyway, from what we have here, we have just 2 people that have said yes.
Okay.
And 8 people that have said no, they don't have a process in place.
Okay,
so majority people don't.
Wonderful.
Yes.
That's really helpful. Thank you, Denise. So if you do, I will be asking you to a later stage maybe share some of the successes, some of the things that you've done that have gone well in terms of talent management. I'll get you to post those in the chat box at any stage through this webinar. If you don't, not to worry, because actually this webinar and our program for HR may well help you with your thinking and the direction in terms of talent management in the future. So let's have a look at what talent management is, because again, I'm going to go to the Chartered Institute of Personnel and Development for their particular definition. And what they mean is that talent management means implementing processes to attract, so we're talking about recruitment here, identify, develop, engage and retain individuals valuable to the organisation. So talent management is a whole process right from the very beginning of recruiting people to trying to identify those people that have got talent. And that's where we need to be very clear as to what do we mean by talented or individuals in our organisation. Then we need to look at how to develop these individuals, engage with them. And I suppose critically, one of the big things is about trying to retain these people. Okay. Because one of the challenges we've got here is obviously trying to make sure that we hold on to those talented people. Once we find them, we need to make sure that we actually hold on to them. So a few ways. If you're not in the UK, there's some research that's been done about the world of work, and it's sort of changed quite a lot here since COVID. It'd be interesting, you can benchmark yourselves against what research has been done. This research has been done by the Office of National Statistics, and it's quite recent. It's 2024. And what they found is that hybrid working appears to have increased since the pandemic, which is interesting. Now, hybrid working here means a certain amount of days in the office and a certain amount of days in your home. Okay. And generally in the UK, what you find is if you're going and traveling into London, which is where I normally work, you find that on Mondays and Fridays, most people are working from home, and Tuesdays, Wednesdays and Thursdays, most people are in the office. Now, I think it's fair to say that the private sector has embraced this much more than the public sector. The public sector have stuck more with hybrid and working from home. It really is very, very popular here. The private sector, however, has tried to encourage people back into offices much more so than those people in the public sector. Now, it does depend on the nature of your business. Some of these will blend very well with actually working from home. Some services do not blend at all well with working from home. Okay, and I'll give you an example. Excuse me. I'll give you an example. Banking, for example. My bank is open from 10 till 3, and the person working in the bank would be there from 10 o'clock till 3, and then from 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. they'd be working on a customer call center, working from home. Okay, so that's quite a dramatic change in how we go to banks here. More than a quarter of working adults in the UK, that's about 28%, were actually hybrid working in the autumn of 2024. So that's quite a large population of our working population actually working from home and working in the office. The main reason for this is improved staff wellbeing has continued to be the most frequently recorded business reason for using hybrid and home working. And I think it's fair to say, if you're in HR, one of the agenda items that's really shot to the top is mental health and well-being. So in HR, we've had to get ourselves a policy, we've had to do some thinking about mental health and well-being, and we've had to try and encourage a good work-life balance. Okay, so it's interesting. Those working from home, if you work in London, most of us travel about an hour into central London. That's probably normal, but they reckon that most people have saved on average about an hour per day from not commuting, and spent more time on sleep and rest. Okay, which is quite interesting, and that may not be the case in your country. I think we're one of the biggest working from home populations in Europe, and I think the Philippines actually is one of the leading countries in terms of working from home. Which is quite interesting. One of the things we need to take into account when we're looking at talent management, excuse me, is that we have multi-generations in the workplace. Now, again, this is something we'll cover on our HR program in more depth. Now, in the UK, we don't actually have a retirement age, and we probably only, to be quite honest, have very, very few traditionalists, because if you look at when they were born, 1922 to 1944, 5, these people are about 79 or 80 years old. Now, there will be a few still in the working population, but they will be very few. Okay. Now, interestingly, those people probably are, they're very experienced, they're very loyal to the company, and they probably had a job for life. Okay, that's that generation. If we look at baby boomers, again, these people will be coming up to retirement age, although generally speaking, we don't have a retirement age here. So there are many people having to work longer. You don't have to retire. Again, we pick up on retirement age, and have some discussions around this. Again, they had a great dedication to work, their ability to forge their career built on an upward mobility, and they had commitment. There's still quite a few people within the working population in the UK. Generally speaking, though, most countries, because some of the countries, and I'm not sure who we've got joining us, but some of your countries, you will have a retirement age of 50 or 55. So the majority of people in your working environment will be Generation X, which was those people born between 65 and 80, very open-minded, appreciate diversity, world citizens, and very competitive. We've then got Generation Y, again, born between 81 and 96. Their career path's been determined by switching roles very frequently. And again, this is something we cover on our HR program about how we manage different generations. They're keen on mobility and they're very socially and vocally aware. If we look at Generation Z, they've been born 1997 to 2012. They're very critical and selective. They are able to multitask with their career, and technology is just natural to them. You know, they've been brought up. We haven't got them in the workforce at the moment, but we do have Generation Alpha, which is 2010 to 2020. Now they're about 15 years old at the moment, so it won't be too long before these people come into the working environment. Probably in the next 5-10 years, these people will be in our environment. And one of the challenges we've got with talent management is how do we manage different generations, but also how do we ensure that we find talent from all of the generations that we've got in our workforce. Some of the challenges we've got in terms of talent management is global mobility of the workforce. So, for example, I booked in a coaching session and it coincided with my holiday, unfortunately. But because I booked it in, one of the things when you're coaching is you have to actually commit to the coaching. So I think I was in Singapore at the time, and I just said to my husband, I've got a coaching session booked in this afternoon. I'm going to do my coaching session. And it was with somebody in Uganda, actually. So I was able to coach from Singapore virtually and commit to actually doing the coaching session. So we've got much more global mobility of the workforce. Virtual opportunities have opened up. The fact that we're doing this today and, you know, across different time zones would be unheard of, 10, 15 years ago. So virtual opportunities have opened up, and many organisations in the UK are working and using things like Teams and Zoom in order to do virtual meetings. The other challenge we've got, or another challenge we've got, is monitoring people. So how do we monitor people's outcomes if they're hybrid working or if they're working up country? How do we actually find out what they've done and how they've done it? Because monitoring people is quite challenging. When we look at our management programs, this comes up in performance management. We've got, unfortunately, the global economic issues. You only have to watch the news to see that, unfortunately, we are in very turbulent and challenging times. And these will have an impact on the global economic situation, but also potentially our countries and our organisations. Okay, there are economic downturns in many countries, and many organisations are having a reduction in both their workforces, but also their budgets. And one of the things that normally gets cut first is the training, or as we like to call it now, learning solutions. So we have got quite a lot of challenges in terms of talent management. Our approach to talent management has been about planning. So how do we actually try and get these people into our organisations? How do we attract the talent? How do we select and identify the talent? And then how do we develop these individuals? How do we then retain them? And then what do we do in order to transition these people? So we've got some, as I said, some challenges with talent management. It's been quite difficult, I think it's fair to say. If you haven't gone off and started anything on talent management, I'm going to give you some ideas about what you might need to consider, okay, in terms of talent management. So you can see here that one of the things HR does need to be really mindful of is obviously the vision and mission of the organisation. So in terms of the HR facility, the faculty, we need to make sure that we are au fait, so familiar with the business plan, that we are looking to undertake workforce planning. We obviously need to recruit, and we're calling it onboarding, but it's what was orientation or induction. So we've moved to onboarding. We need to make sure that we've got robust performance management processes in place. and also that we have training and performance support, so learning solutions that we can offer to individuals. We also need to make sure that talent management links to succession planning, and I'll define what succession planning is in a minute. Need to make sure that there is the appropriate compensation and benefits in order to retain people within the organisation. We have to look at some of the critical skills, do a gap analysis in order to ensure that we are making a full use of the talent management process to try and identify and retain these people. Okay, it may be that we have competency frameworks. The civil service in the UK has something called the success profiles, which is something they use both in recruitment. They're starting to use it in performance appraisal, and they're trying to endeavour to integrate it into everything they do. So it may be that you've got some competency frameworks that this talent management process needs to link into. And we need to be very mindful of job roles and job descriptions. So reviewing and updating and making sure that we are trying to get not just the best people for the job, but those people who are truly talented as well. Okay, so talent management, there's a process that you can have a look at. So in the past, as I said, we've looked at possibly trying to identify a select few individuals. We may have told individuals that they are in the talent pool, or we may not. Some organisations do, some organisations don't. So here in the UK, one of the biggest employers in the UK is the National Health Service, NHS. They actually tell people that they are in the talent pool. But there are many organisations that don't tell people. Okay, some organisations have adopted an all employees are talented approach. So I worked in local government. Our approach was actually all our employees are talented, and therefore we're going to look to develop them. It may also be for some organisations that they've decided to take a blended approach. So they're developing all, but they're prioritising a core group of talented people. Now, many organisations here will have software that links to performance appraisal, and that software will identify talent. It will be using, and I'll share with you in a minute, the 9-box talent management grid, but it's very reliant on the manager's input. So it can be manipulated. If you know the right words to use, you can actually manipulate this. Obviously, we would encourage and train our managers to make sure that they are putting in objective information. But we know, if you're in HR, we know that there are some issues with performance appraisal. It's not always objective. It's not always done with the spirit it's supposed to be done. It's used in some organisations as a tick box exercise, which is a real shame. And we actually need to make sure that we get our managers and our documentation back in the spirit of what performance appraisal should be, which is about looking back on performance, looking forward, so setting new, smarter. So we've now moved away from smart, we have smarter. Okay, that's specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time-bound. The new E and the R is evidence, so it's evidence-based and results-orientated. So we're now looking at smarter targets for our staff. We will possibly, and some of the organisations may well be using HR data to assist in this. So people or HR data, you may be having some software around that. And you may or may not be familiar with the 9-box model of talent management. Okay, so just to share with you, if you're not familiar with this, it's still many people still use this as a paper exercise, and many organisations here in the UK have linked it to software, so it's linked into performance appraisal. And what we're actually looking at, if you look down the side, we've got potential and then we've got expectations. So we are obviously trying to find those right at the very top, potential star, the rising star, and the star performer. Okay, we're still interested in core team members, key contributors, trusted team members. We're interested in those, but for the purposes of talent management, we're looking for the top 3 boxes. And in actual fact, we're probably going to be looking and focusing on those people that sit in the star performance. And you would generally find something like 2 or 3% of your employees would sit in that box. Okay, so just to introduce the 9-box talent management grid to you, if you're not familiar with it, it's an interesting tool. We use this on the program and we bring it to life by actually looking at some employees and their performance and their potential, and then we plot them against the 9-box talent management grid. Okay, so for talent management, this is a highly widely used tool. We're still interested in all the others because there's work that we need to do with some of them, but for talent management, we're probably going to focus on the star performers, but we will be mindful of those people that are rising stars and potential stars. Okay, so if you're not familiar with that, that's an interesting model for you to have a look at. So interesting, when we did the poll, we had the majority of people saying, well, actually, we haven't got talent management yet. Well, actually, in a way, that's quite good, because here's an opportunity to reflect as to where we currently are with talent management. And if you haven't, here's some thinking that you might want to do in order to actually move talent management forward for your organization. So it could be a new area for you, or as we know, we've got a couple of people where it's already in place. And I'll be interested to see how well that's going. That'd be interesting question that maybe I'll ask you at the end. So one of the things you might want to think about if you're in HR, in terms of talent management, you need to think about the organization. So one of the big things here in terms of talent management is about our employer branding. So are we endeavoring to get those best people, the talented people, into our organizations? How do we sell ourselves as an employer? Okay. Are we inclusive? Are we attracting a wide range of individuals through our recruitment and selection process? Now, I did some work recently with an organization who actually said, we've got terrible trouble trying to recruit people. We find it really, really difficult. But actually, one of the things when we looked at their process was they weren't really selling themselves in terms of their learning and development was outstanding. If you wanted to join them, the opportunities for learning and development were first class, absolutely first class. And they really didn't sell that to anybody at all. That wasn't in their branding. It wasn't on their website. It wasn't anywhere. And they were really missing an opportunity about selling themselves as an employer. The other thing we need to think about is, are we inclusive? Are we attracting a wide range of individuals through our recruitment and selection process? So one of the things that we looked at was, where do and how do people actually get into the organisation? And when we looked at it, in terms of their website, it actually was quite difficult to find where the jobs were. So there was some thinking around, well, maybe we can, because you actually had to go through the ministry website and there wasn't a link. So we were making, or they were making, barriers for people to not come into the organisation. They really weren't making the best of their organisation. So some simple IT work needed to be done in terms of making sure that it was accessible to people, that there weren't those barriers in terms of IT that stopped people actually joining, and that they were really thinking about how they sold themselves. Now, one of the things there's a lot of talk about in HR and generally is AI. So many organisations here are using artificial intelligence in recruitment and selection. So you need to this is obviously the future, okay? But the use of AI in recruitment and selection, there are some benefits, and we do cover use of AI in HR in our programs because it's quite a wide range subject. So there are some benefits with AI. in recruitment and selection, but there are also some downfalls, and we need to really seriously think this through in terms of recruitment and selection. We also need to think about how do we engage with platforms, and this goes back to the generations. So if we are, for example, using newspapers, I know some countries I've worked in are very keen to use the newspapers to advertise jobs. You might find that not many young people are using newspapers because they're technologically enabled. And you may want to think about how you engage with younger people. So going back to the generations within the workforce, okay, because it may be more suitable to be doing it, on websites, etc., because young people are much more technologically enabled. So we need to think about things like that. We need to make sure that the mission, the vision, and the values are key. Okay, most people that go into the public sector go in because they want to make a difference. Okay, so we need to make sure that the mission and vision and the values are very clear. So the reason you be joining this organisation is we're aiming to do this. Okay, job descriptions reviewed, current and inclusive. So every time somebody leaves, we should be reviewing those with the line manager, making sure they're current and that they're inclusive. They're able to offer to all people. Onboarding. One of the biggest things we need to think about is making sure that once we've got these people into the organisation, that we really spend some time thinking about what is it that they need to know and how do we onboard them, because that's their first impression of the organisation, and we need to make sure that it's a good impression. Okay, so there should be an organisational onboarding, and then there should be departmental, and HR may be encouraging managers by posting some guidance notes around how to make sure that you onboard people properly in order to retain them. We also need to think about in the organisation, is there a learning culture? Are we keen to develop our staff? So we might want to take some time thinking just about the organisation, and there's some questions you might, as an HR team, one of your team meetings, you could maybe have a conversation about this. In terms of HR, you may want to reflect on, well, how much preparation and planning have we applied to talent management? So is everybody in the HR team familiar with what talent management, or is it one of those things that, is bandied around and there's no clarity in terms of what talent management is? So is everybody clear in the HR function? What do we mean by talent management? So are we in HR committed to undertaking talent management? Do we think we've got the time? Do we think we've got the resources? Goes back to the question I asked you earlier. Have we got a definition of talent and talent management? So have we identified exactly what do we mean by talented people? Is talent management part of our HR strategy? If we looked at your strategy, would it be in there? Is it something that, is it within your strategy? Do we have the learning solutions? You'll notice I'm not saying training because we're now using learning solutions. Do we have the learning solutions, a variety of learning solutions that we can offer, both professionally and developmentally? Have we got career paths available for these people? Do we have the budget? Do we have the time for this? Have we got somebody who in the HR function will lead on this? One of the biggest issues around talent management, and we might want to ask ourselves this question, what communication have we had with employees and managers on this topic? Because it's sometimes something that's just launched or is integrated into HR, but we don't actually mention it to any of our employees. And maybe we need to sort of think about how do we actually communicate with our employees and our managers on this subject. We also have got to think about the top team, okay? So have we enlightened the top team to what talent management is? Most people on the top team are professionals, so they could be legal, they could be financial experts. Generally speaking, they're not HR professionals, okay? They will be, you know, as I said, technological, or they will be, could be legal, it could be IT. So it's interesting. I did some work with the top team. They said, yeah, we keep hearing about talent management, Anne, but we never know what it is. So it was quite easy. We just did a session on talent management. So you might want to think about, how do you enlighten the top team to what talent management is? Because they may not be aware of it. You might also want to think, has HR put a business case together for talent management? So have we actually, you know, put it on the agenda, taken it to the top team? Because if we don't have the top team in agreement that talent management has a place in the organisation, then we are really going to struggle with making sure that talent management is in place. Okay. The other thinking we might want to think about is, have we linked talent management to succession planning? And again, we might want to use people or HR analytics in terms of succession planning. If you just run a report on how many people are retiring, that can be, and take that to the top team, that can be, you know, a good topic for discussion. Okay. So we need to think around the top team. The other thing we need to think about is succession planning, as I said. Now, talent management, we've identified as a process. Succession planning, again, we cover this on our programme, is very much about the process of identifying the critical positions within your organisation. Now, by critical, we mean those that we cannot do without, all right? And again, we do some interesting exercises around succession planning on our HR programme to try and agree which critical positions, i.e. those that you cannot do without, would be in your succession plan. Now, that's not to say that everybody is critical. That's to say that there are some posts that are critical to the business. There are many other posts that are valuable to the business, and we need to be able to differentiate against those. Okay, so we need to be able to find the critical positions and develop action plans for those individuals who are going to assume those positions. So it's two-pronged. Succession planning is about critical positions, identification of, and talent management is around identifying those talented individuals who possibly may go into these positions. Okay, so again, we cover this on our programme. So again, if you haven't done talent management, here's some thinking you might want to take back to your teams. So in terms of tools to identify talent, what do we actually have? Well, that's a good question, actually, because we need to think about that. And one of the tools we've got is performance appraisal. But if you've been in HR, which I'm sure many of you are, you will have found that we have some problems around performance appraisal. Not always is it objective. Not always are the performance appraisals done on time. Not always do we get the information in HR that we require. So we're only really interested in the development plans, which would assist us with learning needs analysis for the organisation. But very rarely do we get that information. And we've got, you know, a tick box exercise. So performance appraisal is one of those tools. It's interesting, actually, I was doing some work with the Civil Service Government Department last week, and they've actually stopped using performance appraisal, which is very unusual in the UK. And it was interesting asking them what they had in place. And they said, well, we haven't really got any guidance as yet, but what we're using is one-to-one meetings. Okay, so we do have one-to-one meetings. We may have projects, we may have feedback, but who do we get the feedback from? We may have talent management tools, so there may be some software platform that manages various aspects of the talent lifecycle. So, for example, it may be a talent management tool that's linked into recruitment and selection, or it's linked into onboarding, or it's linked into performance management or succession planning. We may also have the use of HR people analytics. So that's data in the organisation. But the other question we need to ask us not only is what tools do we use or have we got to identify talent that are objective and evidence-based, So I did hear of one organisation that they asked the top team for those people that were talented in the organisation, and it was literally a recommendation. So there was no evidence to back up anything to identify the talent. So we have to also think about, well, how can we use this information? So what tools do we have and how can we use that? It may be that you're doing some development centres where you're identifying people through a development business simulation program to identify those people. I have to say many organisations here are not using development centres because they're very costly and budgets have been cut. So that's a real challenge for people. So we do have a lot of challenges with talent management, I think it's fair to say. One of the things that we're talking about is HR and analytics, or people analytics. So it's the process of collecting and analysing human resource data to improve workforce performance and inform strategic decisions. So by using this data, we can gain insights to what's working well and what needs improvement. But we need to make sure, A, that we are collecting the data appropriately and that we have trained people in HR in data analytics. Okay, so that's another thing we need to be quite mindful of. We also need to sort of be mindful that there are different types of HR analytics. Okay, so just to share this with you, we've got descriptive analytics. This is using data to focus on the past to identify patterns and trends. So, for example, you may be running a report on those people that have left the organisation, and you may be linking it into your exit interviews, and you are trying to identify why the majority of people are leaving your organisation, because what you're trying to do is identify patterns and trends. Okay, we've got diagnostic analytics that investigates the reasons behind past events, helping people to understand why certain outcomes have occurred. Again, we go into more detail on this. I've got a very short amount of time to get through what I need to get through, unfortunately. We've got predictive analytics. This is using past data to forecast future outcomes. And we've got prescriptive analytics, which is recommending actions to take based on data to help the organisation make data-driven decisions. And again, you can see that the use of HR and analytics and people analytics are going to be in the forefront in the future. There's a lot of talk about AI, so lots and lots of talk about it. I'm not sure everybody understands all about it, but AI does refer to technologies such as, well, this is machine learning. So we've got things like ChatGPT, which you may or may not have heard of. It's actually an AI tool that was launched in November 2022, and it's continually to evolve. Okay, we've got something called Claude, Copilot, and there's many others. Claude is actually a family of large language models. That's LLMS, and it's launched. It's quite new. It's only launched in 2023, and it's developed by Anthropic. Okay. And then we've got something called Copilot. Now that's quite interesting because that's linked in to Microsoft 365. And what it does is it has real-time access to business data within your organization. And it's a very sophisticated processing and orchestration engine that will, for example, if you said, give me a marketing strategy for the communications team, it will give you a first draft based on the data within the organization, so that you don't start from a blank page. You'll be starting with a first draft that you then need to edit. Okay. One of the things we need to be very mindful of this is we should be looking at HR to have policies on the use of these, because some of the work we're doing in the public sector is very sensitive. So there is a move here for certain government departments to actually say to people, you cannot use ChatGPT because it's, information is sensitive. It's not stored in the UK, it's stored elsewhere. Okay, and we need to, HR maybe really needs to get a grip on sort of the use of AI for the future. Thing about AI, and it really is where things are going. I was very lucky to be on an AI avatar webinar recently. Now, I looked at avatars about a year ago. These are digital representations of people or a person or a character, and it uses AI to stimulate human-like interactions. And what it's trying to do is replicate human appearance and behaviour. Now, I looked at this about a year ago, and it was really quite clunky and really not very good. I looked again last week. I was a participant on a webinar. I looked last week, and the gentleman presenting presented himself, and then he had an AI generated one, and you couldn't tell the difference. Okay, very few people could actually tell the difference. So it's huge possibility as we lurch into 2025 and beyond, that we're going to be using AI in talent management. And the good thing about this is that it could assist us in sourcing global talent. So it could broaden our talent pool, not just in our country or our organization. It could be looking right across the globe. It could be also quite useful in fostering diverse workforces. Used at the moment very much in recruitment, but it could be used much more so to make the recruitment process more efficient. And it should be potentially very adaptable to the workforce needs in the future. I mean, it's a huge question mark with AI. There's lots and lots of talk about it, but you can see that actually this is the way we're going to go forward. So what's the future for talent management? Well, I think we need to ask ourselves and do some preparation. So for those people that haven't had any preparation or not doing it, actually, in a way, that's quite good, because it gives you the opportunity to actually think this through before you lurch off into the world of talent management, okay, and have those thoughts and those questions answered and have clarity about what do we mean in terms of talent management in our organisation. Okay, each organisation is unique, and so you need to approach this in, a very methodical and thought-provoking way, I think it's fair to say. So our talent management process, we could review it and update it. We may need to think about and go back to the questions I've been asking. Are we going to adopt the few select employees? Are we going to everybody's talented? Because if you ask a room full of people, are you talented? The majority of people are going to put their hand up, okay? Because they may be talented, not at work, but they may be talented outside of work. We could be looking at a blended approach, all with a core group identified. We're probably very much going to be embracing AI, and people analytics will be the future. I think it's still going to be challenging. And the question we may also have to ask ourselves is, are we going to do this? Because we may decide not to do it. I'm conscious of the time. It's just coming up to 13:55. So thank you for joining me here, and Denise and also Claire at PAI. As I said, the Next Generation Human Resources is running on that date. I've got a few minutes just for some questions. So if we've got any questions, I will be happy to take them in the 5 minutes that we've got left. If I can't answer your question, as Denise said right at the very beginning, we will endeavour to answer your question and send that answer through to you. Okay, so I've got 5 minutes today.
Okay, I've got a couple.
Okay.
So one, what learning and development opportunities would be good for talented people?
Oh, that's a really good question. Okay. So I think one of the things you need to think about is, it goes back to what we were talking about in learning culture. So you need to make sure that you discuss with them, that individual, what, and their line manager. So we need to include the line manager, what learning and development they need to embrace. And that could be to do with obviously their personal qualifications. So there are obviously many professions where you have to do CPD to practice in law, etc. So there needs to be some thinking around the professional and technical skills, the CPD, as well as potentially the formal learning. So it could be, for example, we're able to offer leadership training that includes things like change management. There may be also the opportunity for coaching or executive coaching, or we might be looking at mentoring. But I think really one of the things we need to think about is making sure that we are having those discussions with that individual and also their line manager to make sure that we've got a very carefully planned career path for that individual so that they can see where they're going. But we need to make sure we've answered all of the questions I've just been sort of flagging up in order to make sure that we've got a robust talent management process. So that's an interesting question. Thank you for that. Have we got time for one more?
Okay. Well, I've got a comment here from Eva.
Okay.
And she said not having a retirement age is a very interesting concept.
Yeah.
The people in her country
Yep.
are currently complaining about the fact that the retirement age has increased to 65 to 67.
Oh, well, aren't you? Oh, okay. Yeah, we've got rid of the retirement age here in the UK, and depending on what your pension setup is, does mean that for some people they're not actually financially able to retire, so they have to continue working. So there's many people over 65 that are in the workforce here because they're not financially secure. So, for example, you may not get your state pension, making sure that you paid into it, of course, until, you know, you're 67. I mean, my niece is about 25. I suspect by the time she looks to retire, she's probably going to get a pension around about 70 because we've got an aging population here. That's an interesting question. So, yeah, sorry about that. But, yeah, we've gone beyond the 65. So that's the situation we've got here because we've got an aging population and we can't really afford it. That's one of the problems. Now, I'm conscious of the time, Denise. It's 13:59. I'm looking to close the session, if that's okay. Any last words from yourself and or Claire?
So it looks like Claire's lost her connection.
Oh dear.
So
okay.
She's back.
Okay.
I'm back. Temporary.
We were just closing.
You were going to finish without me, no problem. Well, thank you.
Before you
Denise.
do close,
yes.
Can I just add one thing? After the session has closed, you will receive the handouts. A few people have asked. And also there will be an evaluation form sent to you. And I'd be very grateful if you could just take 2 minutes of your time to fill it in. So thank you.
Marvellous. Thank you very much for joining me today. It's been a real pleasure being able to speak to you. If you have been on this session, I hope you found it useful and thought-provoking. That was the idea of it. And as I said, it's one of the topics that we do in our HR programme. So I'm going to hand over to Claire for the final word.
Thank you very much, Anne. And thanks very much indeed for leading us through the webinar this afternoon. It's lots of things to think about. And thank you so much, all of you who have joined. And as Anne said, hope you found it interesting and useful. Anne's already flagged up the workshop that she's going to be leading in June. Do have a look at our website and get in touch if you want any more information about our programs. We do tailor-made workshops as well, and you're welcome to join remotely if you're not able to travel to London. We have 1 or 2 workshops in other locations as well. So thank you so much. It's been very nice to join you this afternoon, and a great pleasure. And thank you again to Anne, and thank you to Denise for organising and hosting the webinar. All right. Bye-bye for now. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.